Okay, so we're going to get started. This is loud, but we're probably not going to use this. Anyway, we're going to do this in a real informal kind of way. These three gentlemen who I'm going to introduce in a moment are the, in quotations, panel. But it's actually like we are all the panel. So we're going to do this really, really informally. I'm going to tell you who these guys are. They're going to talk for less than 2 minutes a pop. Then we're just going to toss around some questions. And we're going to start it by tossing them around ourselves. And then we want you to participate as well. So you are on the hook for 50% of the time that we are in this room. Just so I can start off by shucking responsibility. Okay, so I'm going to do this in alphabetical order so that no egos are hurt. First and foremost, we have Anthony Alfred. Anthony has been proudly representing ABC Life Literacy Canada as their Director of Communications since September 2008. He holds an excellent record of media and public relations, experience gained within the not-for-profit, public service, and private sectors. Anthony's successful career as a senior communications professional includes leadership and results for several corporate brands, including Toronto Maple Leafs, Bridgestone Firestone, Rogers Cup Tennis Championships, the Ontario Government, Molson Indy, and the Canadian Open Golf Championships. I'm not delaying for dramatic effect because his bio is so amazing. I'm delaying just so we can get the names for the interpreters, although it is pretty amazing what he's done. And Anthony holds a Bachelor of Arts honors degree in Communications and Political Science from York University. And Anthony also takes time to give back to his community in big ways. Since 2002, he's been enjoying his volunteer work as a trusted mentor in the Big Brothers program. I can totally see Anthony as a big brother. That's really nice. So that's Anthony. And then we have Jim Carfrae. Jim is the Vice President of Marketing for Santa Maria Foods, Canada's premier specialty deli company, which sells things that I can't pronounce, like San Daniel prosciutto and Mastro salami. He is also a co-founder, and I like this word, co-animator of Leading Better Roundtable series. And he provides strategic support for Big Brothers Big Sisters. You guys have a connection I bet you didn't know about. And he also does the same thing for the Ontario Literacy Coalition. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here. And then we have, third but so close with Dingley as a last name, we have Mr. Simon Dingley from CBC National News. Simon is producer and reporter with CBC News. He works for both CBC Radio and television, but his primary job is with the television department. He's often heard reporting and hosting sportscasts on CBC Radio across Canada, but his background is in news. He reported from the 2008 Beijing Olympics from CBC.ca. Through the CBC Online website. Also, which I found really interesting, in 2008, while Simon was covering the Stanley Cup final between the Detroit Red Wings and Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm sure you all remember that series, he filed several stories for CBCSports.ca, all of which were written on the scene from his BlackBerry. So that will tell you how much that industry has changed and how much our industry has also changed. And I could go on forever, but I think I'm gonna leave her there. So these are the three prestigious gentlemen that I have the privilege of trying to keep under control today. And so who am I? I am Jody Lundrigan. I'm the Manager of Communications and Marketing at the Ontario Literacy Coalition. I've been in this role since it was created in May 2007. Prior to this, I worked in health, environment, and development sectors as a communications specialist, focusing on identifying new trends for those sectors, or for those fields, I guess. But never have I worked for a cause that, to be honest, I believed was so fundamentally important. but also never have I worked for a field who is so quiet about the amazing work that they're doing. And I think that our need to push the envelope in terms of advertising what we're doing and talking about what we're doing was highlighted in the opening panel, which I thought was amazing. And so I hope that that gets reflected in this discussion here as well. And so I guess that's why we're here, to not be quiet about literacy. So I'm going to give each of these guys 2 minutes to do a spiel, which they're going to do from their chairs, which means not loudness, just yelling from their chairs. And then we're going to throw out some questions and see if we can get a discussion going.
Nothing can hold a candle to the potential of the brand of literacy. The potential of this brand is stratospheric. It's changing. It's life-changing. And I'm just so excited to take part in a conference that has the theme of this, Agents of Change. All of us in this room have an opportunity to help this cause get noticed. I'm really lucky. I get up every day and I feel I'm very fortunate to be able to, and I'll use this word, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody in this room, but I'm really happy to sell this cause. I think it's a responsibility for all of us in this room to sell this cause. I think it's also a great opportunity for us in this room, and outside this room as well too, to sell this cause. We have to do that. ABC Life Literacy Canada in March of this year changed our name. We changed our logo. We wanted to get noticed. We wanted to create a new narrative on what literacy could mean. And thus we increased what we hope to be is a wider platform of conversation. And I really think that's a big departure from what this cause has traditionally done to sell themselves. I think we need to create a wider platform. I go back to the brand, and I think Craig Alexander, who is the Senior Vice President of TD Bank Financial Group, and he's also the Chief Economist, quite eloquently said it at an event I was at in Calgary. He would dare anybody to think of anything that doesn't involve our cause, literacy, that doesn't involve our cause. So when we think about marketing the cause, I think we have to become a little bit more, a lot more wider in our view of what this cause can do. We can sell so many things about literacy, lifelong learning, as it relates to business, as it relates to health and wellness, as it relates to sports. And I'm joined here by some esteemed colleagues who can talk about how literacy has impacted them as well. But I guess my biggest thing about literacy is that we have to change the channel. We have to create a new narrative on what this word means. And we have to be able to change the channel also on the people that we talk to and we engage with. So that's my spiel off the top, and I really look forward to having a conversation with all of you over the next hour. Thank you.
It's funny because we didn't talk in advance, and I was planning to say exactly everything Anthony said. So I've been in the marketing field for over 20 years, and there's really, I think it's an overstated word. I think people attach a lot of sex appeal and buzz to it, and things are actually pretty basic. And I have a couple, just 3 things that I want to start us off with. The first one is you need to decide who you're talking to. And we think, well, we're talking to people who have literacy challenges, or people who know people. But we're talking to other people as well, and it's very important before you start coming up with a marketing plan or a strategy to actually think about who is the audience that you're trying to do. And what is it you really want them to do? What do you want them to change their behavior? And if you do, how do you want them to change it? If you don't know and it's not clear in your mind, how can you possibly be successful there? Only by accident? And that's not exactly the way we want to go. The second thing is the power of stories. I'm a huge believer in stories. I have done a number of things with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Canada. And they used to be very factual in their communications, and they were doing okay. And they moved to a storied approach, and they went from serving 15,000 children to over 30,000 children in just 4 years. And I would say the #1 change is that they started telling the stories, the positive stories of change, as opposed to talking about the societal changes that were happening in that period. So I think that's a good example. And then thirdly, the stories need to be compelling. And to me, that's about experimenting and testing. Don't just go, well, I got the story, and go out and tell it. Go out and tell it to a few people and see if it motivates them, see if it works. And if it does, great, keep working. If it doesn't, then change things around and do a little bit more. The reason the stories need to be compelling is there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of causes out there. And I'm overwhelmingly reminded in this month of October, when I watch football players playing with pink shoes, it's Breast Cancer Month. And I would argue that breast cancer has been a marketing machine, and they get more than their fair share of support and help. Now, hey, not saying at all that the cause is not valid. It's a massively important cause. But they would take, I would argue, probably 500% of the money that should be allocated, and maybe we get 20% of the money or time or energy or resource or focus. And it's, well, how do we get ourselves to be treated from a big league marketing perspective? By telling compelling stories that we've tested out and make sure they work. Simon?
The fact that I know very little about ABC Life Literacy means Anthony was right. It needs to sell itself better. What I'm about to tell you comes from a reporter's perspective. I don't know how much you know about the media, but the big problem in getting your message across is people in the media are bombarded every day with emails and press releases from groups that are hoping for coverage. I know some reporters who get dozens of emails every day from organizations saying, please cover our story, please come out. And some of these reporters, including my wife who's a media member, they simply can't even read the emails because they never get through their daily work. One way that you can get your message across is something I call personal touch. And the gentleman sitting beside me actually started it a few years ago when he was the media relations person for the Royal Canadian Golf Association. In addition to sending out an email, he'd follow up with a call to media members to get them out. Well, it worked because I've never covered golf in my life, and I had no interest in golf.
He's got a great golf game.
Anthony got me out to cover golf. I've never covered it in my life, and he said, you have to do this. Well, suddenly I've noticed his technique has now been followed up by a couple of other organizations. They now call media members to get them to come out to their events. They even ask for cell phone numbers. So obviously that method works. I don't know how much you know, but it used to be if you had a news conference plan, you'd send out a news release to the Canadian press and they put it out in their daily outlook, and that's what reporters relied on. That's not good enough anymore. Most newsrooms have so few reporters now because of the economy that you've almost got to target and court those reporters to get them to come to your event. Jim mentioned storytelling. That's important, Jim. We can talk about that later. Most media outlets simply have so few reporters these days that if your news conference or event isn't interesting, the reporter will call back to his assignment and say there's not enough here for a story, and they'll quickly reassign the reporter. It's simply, that's the way it works, because they've got to guarantee that, they have to guarantee that they'll have a good solid story for their newscast that night or for their newspaper for the next day. So the reporter quickly assesses whether there's anything to the story. I'd say the biggest thing that I notice is the mistakes that organizations make when they're trying to get media coverage. Every day I see it happen. Today, for example, I got an email asking me to cover an event in Ottawa on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And to send it to a reporter in Toronto is a little far-fetched, but media outlets are not going to fly reporters to different cities to cover it. And also, Saturday night at 8 o'clock, that means you miss the 6 o'clock newscasts, which means the media outlet gets nothing for its 6 o'clock newscast, which is its main newscast. They also have skeleton staff on weekends. So holding an event Saturday night at 8 o'clock, it's going to get, I can tell right now, the event is going to get very little media coverage. Last Friday, I was invited to a news conference here in Toronto by an organization, a multinational organization. The event was scheduled for 3:30 on a Friday. Most newscasts and television start between 5 and 6. That gives the reporter no time to cover it, to process it, and to edit the story. To make matters worse, the news conference, which was scheduled for 3:30, didn't actually start till 4:15, putting all the media well behind, throwing a curveball at all the media. And finally, at this news conference, no lights. And these are not the lights I'm talking about. I'm talking about lights for television, which are 100 times more powerful. And if I was to say videotape Jody with just the lights here, Jody's face would come up black. So that's what I mean. Little things like that they didn't plan on. They don't know that you've got to do these things, otherwise you won't get coverage. And the organizations that